Gunshots, anger and fear. A day at the gates of Kabul airport. In the crowd of desperate people still trying to escape the Taliban, British citizens and Afghans who once worked with the British government.
Many of these men served us. Today we're slamming the gate on them and their families.
Meanwhile, Tony Blair describes America's justification for its withdrawal from Afghanistan as imbecilic.
You've got to be prepared to hold to your course over the long term and to see it through.
Also tonight, a few weeks on from that Olympic gold, Britain's Bethany Shriever becomes a BMX world champion as well. And the passing of a rock and roll legend, Don Everly, is dead at 84.
This is ITV News with Geraint, Vincent.
Good evening. A desperate situation has been building all week at the entrances to Kabul's international airport, and tonight we have a report from the heart of it, where hundreds of people, some of them holding British passports, are stuck just a few yards from safety. Desperate to flee the Taliban's return to power in Afghanistan, they found their way blocked by British soldiers. The government here says it's now airlifting more than 1,000 people a day, but that's clearly not enough room yet for everyone who needs to escape. Our senior international correspondent, John Irvine, has spent the day at the gates.
With volleys of gunfire, security guards try to restore order at a doorway to the UK. From where we were standing, this entrance to the temporary British embassy at Kabul airport looked more like an escape hatch than a gate. 1 week on, as the stopwatch on the air bridge ticks down, desperation levels on this side of the fence in Taliban-held Kabul are ticking up. For a moment, it crossed my mind to go through the door. There would be relief and security inside. But my team and I were far from the only UK passport holders in the crowd. And who were we to gain the access our fellow citizens were denied?
I'm a British citizen and I've got my kids are British and they're stuck here. They close the door at us and they're shooting back at us. Well, my message for the Prime Minister is just to get us out from here, because otherwise our kids are struggling and we're all in a big mess here. And the British army is right behind these fences. They close the gate and they're not letting no one in.
And their parents are inside and their children are outside.
Where are the children?
Right here, they're standing right here.
Amid the chaos, we were shown two children apparently left behind when their parents were among the few to be admitted here.
Mr. Biden, you did this, you planned this, you made the deal with the Taliban. This is the consequences of it. This is the repercussions of it. Mr. Biden, it's your ill calculation. You were against Trump, now we are against you. Go to hell, Biden!
I am the British interpreter and I work for 1 year in Nadali in Helmand.
With the Marines?
Yeah, for 5 Commando, yeah. Yesterday night I was here.
You've been here all night?
Yeah, all night, with my children. This tree is my children, she is my wife, and I need help from UK.
I'm sorry this has happened
No,
to you.
it's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
This is desperation and betrayal on show yet again. Many of these men served us. Today we're slamming the gate on them and their families. It doesn't feel great to be British on this side of the fence today. Those who make it to the other side are getting out thanks to the professionalism of service personnel who've been dealt an almost impossible hand when it comes to identifying and admitting Afghans deemed eligible. Among those people still left behind here, this woman was poised to become Afghanistan's first ever Paralympian. The window to reach Tokyo closed just before she was due to fly. Her country is now the graveyard of hers and many other hopes and dreams.
And John has sent us this update from Kabul, where he describes some of the flaws in that evacuation plan.
Well, you know, many armies around the world have mottos about no soldier being left behind, but already our government is warning that no nation will get everybody out of here. The Defence Secretary would like to see the air bridge deadline of August the 31st extended, but that's a decision that'll be made in Washington, not London. We reckon that today, since breakfast time, around a dozen flights have left Kabul, so the tempo is picking up. The problem remains access to the airport. The system set up for legitimate evacuees to get through is being adulterated by a majority of people who haven't been granted safe passage but are still trying to get to the airport to catch flights. They're pretending to have accreditation by showing the Taliban things like electricity bills to get through. Many Taliban are illiterate. We have to improve that access process to leave as few people behind here as possible.
Here, the Prime Minister who sent British troops into Afghanistan 20 years ago has been fiercely critical of America's decision to withdraw from the country completely. Tony Blair said it was dangerous and unnecessary, and he said that Britain had a moral obligation to stay and help in the evacuation process. Here's our political correspondent, David Wood.
He ordered troops into Afghanistan 2 decades ago, then with high hopes of the changes they could achieve. Now, he's long out of power, they're heading home. And Tony Blair describes that as the abandonment of the people of Afghanistan, something he says is tragic, dangerous and unnecessary.
The country did have a chance, and it was really our own internal short-term politics in the West that has driven, in the last couple of years, us to put at risk what we gained. And I think it's only now that we're realising in this moment of crisis exactly how much we gained and how foolish it is to lose it.
But America's withdrawal is no surprise.
It's long past time we end the forever wars.
One presidential slogan has become synonymous with Afghanistan.
Ending the forever war in Afghanistan.
A slogan Tony Blair defines as imbecilic. But in the White House just moments ago, Mr. Biden defended his decision to withdraw.
My job is to make judgments no one else can or will make. I made them. I'm convinced I'm absolutely correct in not deciding to send more young women and men to war.
Whilst the government here isn't criticising the US and its decision to withdraw troops, many senior backbench Tories are.
I'd feel really despondent. And I'm a dual national. I was born in New York. You know, to see us unable to communicate and collaborate in the way that we've done in the past, United States and Britain. We need to reignite that spirit of determination to show that leadership on the international stage.
These men sent troops to Afghanistan after the September the 11th attacks. Their aim to root out al-Qaeda and boot out the Taliban. But with the Taliban now back in charge, our ex-PM says Afghanistan is more dangerous. So too is the rest of the world.
So, David, despite all the criticism, the president's not for turning, is he?
No, he's not, and that criticism is growing in the US too and right around the world. Joe Biden will join a G7 leaders summit on Afghanistan on Tuesday. That'll be led by Boris Johnson, focusing on the evacuation plans. But there was a slight glimmer of hope in what Joe Biden said for the UK government. He said whilst he doesn't want to extend the deadline for troops to leave, he will do if necessary to get more people out. And UK government sources have been very clear with me that the UK forces won't be able to hold Kabul airport once the US troops leave, if they do as planned at the end of the month. If that does happen, it'll be far more difficult, if not impossible, to get more people to safety.
OK, thank you, David Wood. At least 22 people are now confirmed dead in flash flooding in the US state of Tennessee. Others are still missing after more than 10 inches of rain fell in just 6 hours in some places, washing away buildings and roads. And Tropical Storm Henri hit the east coast of the US this afternoon, bringing high winds that knocked out power and caused more flooding. The storm was downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm just before landfall, but still brought winds of more than 60 miles an hour from New Jersey to Massachusetts. Sport and in golf, Anna Nordqvist secured victory at the 45th Women's British Open. A closing round of 69 saw the Swedish player finish on 12 under at Carnoustie, 1 stroke clear of the chasing pack. Former champion England's Georgia Hall finished in joint second place. Nordqvist's Open victory is the 3rd major title of her career. And Team GB's Olympic BMX gold medalist Bethany Shriver has made history again. Shriver chose to start today's World Championship final in the trickiest lane, lane 8, but as other riders fell, she kept her composure riding to World Championship glory in the Netherlands just 3 weeks after winning in Tokyo. Bethany is the first woman in history to be both BMX Supercross, Olympic and World Champion. Finally tonight, rock and roll might not have been the same without the Everly Brothers, whose harmonising hits of the 1950s and 60s paved the way for many who followed. The Beatles, the Beach Boys and the Bee Gees all said they were key influences. And tonight, tributes are being paid to Don Everly, the older brother, who has died at the age of 84. Vincent McAvenny has more.
Dream, 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 dream.
They were the Tennessee Brothers whose signature rhythmic guitar and close harmonies set the standard for pop harmony. So influential were the Everly Brothers on a generation of artists, a young Lennon and McCartney even considered calling their band the Foreverly Brothers before opting for the Beatles. Don and Phil had their first major hit with Bye Bye Love in 1957. Over the next 16 years, more followed, making them famous the world over. Despite their signature harmonising, offstage John had a fractious relationship with his brother. They parted ways in 1973 before reuniting in 1983 at the Royal Albert Hall.
It's good to be back.
And then falling out again. They put their differences aside for a few more reunions and to be amongst the first inductees to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1986.
Thank God they gave us 2. We don't have to fight over it, Julie.
A very fine guitar player. He emulated Bo Diddley and other early rhythm guitar players. And there's a story that I believe Keith Richards tells about Don Everly showing Keith how to do open tunings in the 60s, and it forever changed his sound.
Younger brother Phil passed away in 2014. But when rock stars like Bob Dylan say we owe these guys everything, they started it all, the Everly Brothers are unlikely to be forgotten.
And that's it. The weather forecast is next. From all of us here on the Weekend News team, thank you for watching and good night.